There was this point in time in my life when I realized I was trapped. There was nowhere to go. Engulfed with the disease of alcoholism, engulfed with the disease of drug addiction, and all that comes with it. Plagued by fear and anxiety and worry, selfish and self-centeredness, guilt, remorse, and shame, with nowhere to turn and nowhere to go. I had tried every single thing I could and nothing worked. Treatment center, therapist, drugs, you name it, and the solution just wouldn't come. And I was baffled and I couldn't figure out what was the problem, and I couldn't figure out the solution because I didn't understand the problem in the first place. There was a point in time in my life when I got to a place of being painted into a corner, and there was a surrender that had to take place, and I just didn't know where to go and I didn't know what to do. Then I was presented with a solution, and by the grace of God, I was able to be willing to hear that solution. And the solution was something that I had never known before, and it was something I never wanted to look at before. And I was able to be nursed back to health from the inside out. I always tried my entire life to fix the external. And if I only thought that if I fixed the relationship, if I fixed the relationship with my parents, if I fixed the relationship, if I was able to get a job, if I was able to get the degree, if I can only do this, things would be better. And I realized that it just wasn't working. There was a moment of clarity that this wasn't working, and I had to figure it out, and that was my problem. And this moment of clarity allowed me to finally realize that what I had done just didn't work anymore, and that I had to listen to somebody else. Finally, I listened to somebody else, and thank God for that moment of clarity. And what I was presented with was a solution that was grounded in spiritual principles, and that was the farthest thing from what I wanted to do, but I had nothing else, and I had to grasp at straws. And I didn't understand, and I didn't know where I was going, and I had no clue what it meant, but I knew I had to try it. It was either that or live a miserable existence to which would bring me to death, and I knew that. Deep down, I knew that's what would happen. So I finally started to open my ears and listen and shut my mouth and follow these directions to a point where things started to change, and my life started to change, not big, but small. I had to face a lot of things. I faced a lot of things I didn't want to take a look at. I had to admit to a lot of things that I didn't want to admit to. I had to take a look at the fear and insecurity. I had to be honest with people, and I had to say where that was, because for a 6'3", 260-pound man that played football, it was not something that you wanted to admit to be weak and to be fearful. But my whole life was engulfed by it constantly. And once I was able to expose that stuff, and once I was able to trust in somebody that could help me, and once I was able to take this solution that I was given and start to run with it and start to do the work on myself, all of a sudden these things got better. My perspective on life changed. My perspective on myself started to change. And then I had to face the wreckage of my past at some point, and I had to take a look at that, and that was a tough pill to swallow, but I had to do it. And I had to go out, and I had to take the bit in my teeth, and I had to go to these people and try to make these wrongs right. And that's what I did, and I didn't do it perfectly, and I never did it perfectly, but what I did was I had the willingness to keep going, and it finally, at some point, started to click. It started to click. And what I realized about this journey, it wasn't about how good I did the work. It was about showing up and being willing to do it. And then everything else fell into place. God, a higher power, whatever you want to call it, started to show up in my life, and I started to see that, and it started to be evident that things were no longer coincidences, and things started to pan out. Once I became willing and ready to hear the message, the messenger showed up and they appeared. And I've gone through all kinds of trials and tribulations, even sober, and it's just another opportunity for me to get well. It's an opportunity for me to expose more of the sickness that lies inside of me that I didn't realize was inside of me. I thought this whole thing was about one thing: stopping using, stopping drinking and drugging, and what I realized was that was my solution to my problem. That was the solution for me for a long time. And once I finally realized that I had to get to a place of fixing the internal stuff that was causing me to drink and drug, I never got better. And that's what I did. And I'm blessed to be able to be a part of this thing, and I'm blessed that these people came around me, and I'm blessed that I was introduced to this spiritual solution, and that I finally was able to get free of what had been plaguing me for many, many years.